My name is William Carter. I'm 86 years old. People tell me my memory is remarkable. The nurses say it gently, like it's something impressive. My doctor once asked what I eat, as if blueberries or green tea are responsible for the clarity. It isn't diet, it's weight. Some memories never loosen their grip. I wake up before sunrise most mornings. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent now. The refrigerator hums. The wooden floor settles. And in that stillness, the past lines up clearly, almost patiently, waiting to be noticed. I remember the exact pattern on the wallpaper in our first apartment. Pale stripes. We couldn't afford to repaint. My wife, Margaret, said it looked cheerful. I knew she was trying to make it feel like home. Margaret had a way of filling empty spaces with warmth. I had a way of filling them with silence. Back then, I believed being a good man meant working hard and staying steady. I worked at a manufacturing plant outside Cleveland for 32 years. I rarely missed a shift. I kept my head down. I brought home a paycheck every Friday. I thought that was enough. When our son Daniel was born, I remember holding him awkwardly, afraid I might drop him. He had these tiny fists that never seemed to unclench. Margaret cried that night, quietly, out of joy. I went to work the next morning as usual. Life moved quickly after that. Promotions came, more responsibility, longer hours. I convinced myself it was temporary, just until things were stable, just until we were comfortable. Stability has a way of stretching into decades. Daniel used to wait by the living room window when he was small. Margaret told me he liked to watch for my car headlights at night. I didn't know that at the time. I was usually too tired to notice who was watching. One evening, when he was about 10, he asked if I could help him build a model airplane for school. I told him we'd do it over the weekend. That weekend, I picked up an extra shift. The airplane sat half-finished on the dining table for weeks. Eventually, it disappeared. I never asked what happened to it. I remember the look on his face more than the airplane itself. Not anger, not even disappointment, just adjustment. Children adjust quietly. Margaret didn't fight with me much. That might have been the problem. She would sit across from me at dinner and ask about my day. I would answer in short pieces. Then I would ask about bills or schedules or repairs that needed handling. We discussed logistics. We avoided everything else. There was a night, I see it clearly now, when she stood at the kitchen sink long after the dishes were done. The light above her cast a soft shadow on the wall. I asked if something was wrong. She said no. I nodded, and that was the end of it. I thought peace meant the absence of argument. I didn't understand that it can also mean the absence of closeness. Years passed like that. Birthdays marked by cakes and photographs. Vacations where I checked my watch too often. Conversations that skimmed the surface and never dove beneath. From the outside, we were solid, reliable, a stable American family. Inside, there were rooms we stopped entering. When Daniel turned 17, he stopped asking me to attend his basketball games. I assumed he wanted independence. Margaret didn't correct me. Looking back, I see the pattern clearly. But at the time, it felt normal, responsible, even necessary. Memory sharpens what denial once softened. Margaret got sick in early autumn. The leaves were turning. I remember because she insisted on opening the windows, even when the air grew colder. She said she liked the smell of it. The diagnosis came quickly, too quickly. Hospitals have a particular brightness to them, fluorescent lights that make everything look exposed, honest in a way that's uncomfortable. I sat beside her bed most evenings after that. For the first time in my adult life, I left work early without guilt. There was nowhere else I needed to prove myself anymore. One night, when the machines were humming softly and the hallway was quiet, she looked at me and said, "You were always dependable, William." She paused before continuing. "I just never knew if you were with me." I didn't know how to answer that. Dependable. It was the word I had built my identity around. Hearing it spoken like that felt different, lighter than I expected, almost fragile. I told her I loved her. I meant it. But the words felt newly learned, like I was pronouncing them for the first time. She smiled politely, the way you do when someone hands you something long overdue. Margaret passed away 2 weeks later. The house did not feel dramatic afterward. No thunder, no cinematic grief, just stillness. Her slippers remained near the bed for months. I couldn't move them. It felt like erasing evidence that she had ever been there. Daniel came to help with paperwork. He was kind, efficient. He handled the hospital bills and insurance calls with a calm professionalism. I realized, watching him, that he had learned something from me: how to function, how to stay composed, how to avoid saying too much. There was a moment in the kitchen, almost the same spot where Margaret used to stand, when I considered telling him everything, that I had known deep down I was distant, that I had mistaken provision for presence. But the words stalled. Old habits do not dissolve easily, even in grief. Now at 86, the days are simple. I make coffee. I sit by the window. I let memory arrive without resisting it. I remember Daniel at 10, holding that unfinished airplane. I remember Margaret at the sink. I remember the evenings filled with quiet that I once called peace. My memory is sharp because I never resolved those moments when they were happening. They stayed open, unfinished. Unfinished things do not blur. They wait. If time is narrowing for me, and I feel that it is, there is no grand revelation left to offer, just recognition. I was present in body. I was absent in ways that mattered more. That is what my mind refuses to forget. And maybe that is why it remains so clear. If you've listened this far, thank you for sitting with an old man's recollections. Sometimes remembering is the only form of honesty we have left. As I look back across 8 decades of ordinary American life, factory floors, mortgage payments, birthday dinners, hospital corridors, I see how memory preserves what we postpone. Psychology says unresolved emotion strengthens recall, that the brain holds tightly to unfinished moments. I believe that now, not because I studied it, but because I live inside it. What stays with me are not the promotions or the long hours. It is the quiet at the dinner table, the model airplane left incomplete, the sentence my wife paused before finishing. These fragments return with detail and clarity, not to punish me, but to remain acknowledged. A sharp memory is not proof of health. Sometimes it is proof of what was never spoken. If this story lingers with you, perhaps it is because many lives are built on steady routines and careful silence. We learn to function well. We learn to endure. But some spaces between people grow quietly while no one is looking. Thank you for being here, for listening without interruption. You can share your thoughts if you feel inclined, or simply sit with it for a while. And mine has become painfully precise.